how to index files. I want us to take a step higher and look at a more advanced way of importing files into pandas or Python using pandas. So in the previous example we used the .csv file, but I want us to use also Excel so that you can learn how to do that. So the syntax is the same. We create a variable name df, and df can be anything. So you can choose the name you want. I normally prefer df because it makes it easier to call it throughout. And we use the pd for pandas. By the way, if you had already imported pandas at the top and run it, you don't need to import it every time. So that is why I'm just using pd. But if you relaunch your Jupyter, you will have to run it before you can start using it. So that, take note of that, otherwise you'll get an error. So once you do this, we use the function read, but this time we are not reading a CSV, we are reading Excel. So we can type that, and by the way, in your keyboard you can just hit the tab, it will give you options, and then just select Excel, and then the name of the file. So our previous file was called Africa. I hope you saved it that way. It was called Africa. Remember to always include the extension file name .xlsx. And if you look at this file, this is our file, this is the name. You realize that Excel normally stores them in terms of sheets. So this is sheet 1. Maybe you can have an additional sheet here, but our sheet 1. So we can just use, in this case, comma, then sheet 1, and then like that, just as simple as this. We run this, and if we type df to confirm our data head, we have our Excel spreadsheet imported into Python using pandas. So sometimes you don't want to export or import everything, because once you start dealing with big data, you might have maybe 47 million data points, and you only want to view the first 1,000 or 100. So to do that, you can basically modify this import code and do, instead of you specify, you give it an extra argument called nRows to mean number of rows, and specify. So in our case, I just want to present the first 3 rows. So that will be the first 3 data points. So it's going to be Kenya, Nigeria, and Ethiopia. If I do that, I need to add s to the rows, that's why I'm getting an error. And if I do df, I'm going to have only the first 3 data points, starting from 0, 1, 2. So it starts from 0. Obviously, it's the computer. Okay, the next thing that we want to do is use let's look at this data once again. Let me just pull it up. This is our data, and we have got Ethiopia, so if you look at our data, we have got points where some data are missing. So Ethiopia is missing data at the independence because it was never colonized, and so is the colonizer data point missing. Same goes to Namibia, that has never had a coup. Liberia didn't have a colonizer. South Sudan, no colonizer. So we have got data points that are null values. So these ones can always be changed in Python using and I want us to, before we proceed, I just want us to change this and make sure that okay, you don't need to change it. I'll explain why. So now that you want to make sure that all the data points that do not have data are converted into something that makes sense. So if you look at this data point, you realize that there are some points that are written NA to mean not applicable. And there's one here, like Namibia, where there's no data and is simply an underscore. So if you want to read your data and you want it to specify those columns that don't have data, then you can include another value. So in this case, let me just import it. So it's pd again read.excel, and just copy this to make it easier. But this time I'm importing everything, so I'm not going to specify the number of rows. And then this is your data frame. You want to ensure that anything that doesn't have any kind of value will be returned as no values. So to do that, you add an argument here called NA value. So this is an inbuilt pandas values, and it accepts a string. It accepts a list. So the first thing you want to say, or to want to tell it to specify all the values that doesn't have anything. So in this case, we know that values doesn't have any value in them, or any columns that doesn't have value in them is labeled by NA and hyphen or underscore. So you want to specify that. So you're going to specify that as, of course, they are strings, NA, then comma, underscore. So basically you're telling Excel that go and import my data frame, or go and import my data, but if you see any values that has got NA and an underscore, then treat them as no values. So once we import this, let's run and see what happens. So you realize that now Namibia's column is changed to NA, but if you look at the previous file, it was underscore. Same goes to these other ones, NA, they have been changed to NA dot integers, or it has been changed to no value. Okay, so the next thing that we want to do, now that we have learned how to import values, including those that doesn't have anything, we have also corrected for this and ensured that whenever we have got underscore, we replace it with no value, and so is this other one. So now we want to save this modified version of our Excel file, but I want us to save it into CSV. So to do that, Python has got a function, or pandas has got a function called, because we are saving it to CSV, we just do the name of the data frame. So if your data frame was df1, so make sure it's df1. So here my data frame is just df, so dot, then I'll do to CSV. This is a function in pandas that allows you to export that file, and then you specify the name the way you want to save it. So I'll just say new Africa, and I will do dot CSV. So I've not specified which folder to save it, so it will automatically save it where my Jupyter notebook folder is. So if you look at here is where my Jupyter notebook folder is. This is it. So it's going to save it here. So once I run this code here, you will see a new file here called New Africa. So let me run it. And true to the word, you can see it has been saved here. But let's open and see what it has. So if you are using Windows, you might want to open it with Excel or Notepad, but I'm using MacBook, so I'm going to open it with numbers. And here is our file. So this is our new file. You realize that this column has been emptied. So is this, so is this, so is the other one. So they have removed those values because we specified. But I want you to pay keen interest on the index section. You realize that we have got extra numbers here, which means the index has also been imported. So to make sure that you do this without bringing in the index, the easiest way is normally to, when importing the data frame, you just make sure that you add an additional argument index equal to false, and this will ensure that your new data frame or your new CSV file doesn't have got any kind of index. So let's open it again. You realize that now the index is gone, so it looks neater. So that is how you make sure that you remove the index. The last thing, and maybe I should hold this for the next session because I see our time is up, and I don't want this video to be super long. So let's push this to the next section. So feel free to again subscribe for the updates on new videos that are coming up. Please make sure that you like the video. It's good for the business, and share with a friend. Super good for business. See you in the next section.